This was the week where Joe Biden showed that he could unite the Senate in passing legislation once he backed away from all of the things that he believed in. The Senate passed a $1 trillion infrastructure bill, which includes just $550 billion of new spending in things like bridges, roads, $66 billion for Amtrak, which is Biden's, personal little pet project, which is enough money to bring that rail system into the year 1989. Tight. There's woefully inadequate money, though, to deal with climate change, of course. Here was my favorite part of the infrastructure discussion. The legislation also includes more than $300 million to develop technology to capture and store carbon dioxide emissions from power plants, and $6 billion to support struggling nuclear reactors. Struggling nuclear reactor. Like, the phraseology is so funny. Like, oh my God, I don't know. I'm just a struggling nuclear reactor. I'm like waiting tables and like doing auditions like whenever I can. And, I'm just trying, just really struggling out here. But the other thing that, if you noticed in that, is that there's going to be a whole study on the job losses associated with Biden's decision to cancel Keystone XL, which is like, yeah, no, that's totally what we should be doing right now, is being like, how many jobs did we lose by not destroying the planet? So, okay, before we get into the discussion about this, 19 senators did vote for that $1 trillion infrastructure bill. And the entire idea, if you haven't been following, is to break this into two pieces, right? So it's to pass the infrastructure bill bipartisanly, which they did in the Senate, and then pass this budget reconciliation in order to get everything that was left out, which at this point is $3.5 billion or trillion dollars, $3.5 trillion. That includes things like home care, money for housing, clean energy, tax credits, transportation, innovation on green tech, and the like. And that needs a simple majority to pass, right? Bernie Sanders, as budget chair, put this up. Now, here was the plan. I'm sure you guys have been following this. Progressives were like, we don't want to pass the infrastructure bill if you don't also attach the budget reconciliation to it. So we're going to withhold our vote. We're going to wait until the Senate clears the $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation. Then we'll vote on it, kind of like, leveraging to prevent against a filibuster, blah, blah, blah. Nancy Pelosi, surprisingly, super on board for this. Nancy was like, okay, we'll get it done. We'll do that so we could da-da-da-da-da. Now, of course, moderate Dems in the House say they don't want to do that. 9 House Dems tell Pelosi they won't vote on the budget resolution till infrastructure bill passes. Nuh-uh. And let me just say, look, I rarely say this, guys, but let Nancy fucking legislate, okay? She is only good at one thing. She's not good at empathy, but she is good at whipping votes. She can do it. She can do it. But now they're holding out. And then like fucking clockwork, guess who else doesn't like the $3.5 trillion budget? Key Democrats say the price tag on the $3.5 trillion budget blueprint is too high. Senator Joe Manchin III. I don't care. Why you got to have the third? Really? West Virginia, key Democrat moderate, announced on Wednesday that he was unlikely to support a $3.5 trillion economic package just hours after he helped advance a budget blueprint that would allow his party to craft legislation with that price tag. This man is the most fickle bitch. I swear to God. So not just Manchin, Sinema is also like, no, I don't want that. It's too expensive. This has got very wonky real fast, but what do you guys think? Nando, have you been following this? Do you think this will get over the finish line?
I suspect that there's like a 60% chance of it getting over the finish line. I think it's better than 50-50. I think one key thing, really it's a game of chicken right now between the conservative wing of the Democrats and the sort of more progressive wing. And it's interesting because the House majority from the Democrats is so thin, the progressives and like those 9 Congress people have the swing votes essentially. Like they could bring the whole thing down if they wanted to. Both sides could. So they're really just like staring at each other like who's going to blink first. I suspect that with the president behind this. I mean, I think Biden is like desperate to pass both these things.
Yeah.
I suspect with the president behind it, I don't think that these kind of 9 nobodies that are you've never heard of, like they're 9 of like the bums that you've never heard of. Like literally, you've never heard of any of them.
You're a bum.
Yeah. I don't think they have enough institutional backing and backbone to be able to stand up to the entire party, if that makes sense. Especially if the progressives indicate that they'll knock it down. If this is like if Pelosi caves on this, which is possible, that AOC and all these people would knock the whole thing down. Like you need the mutually assured destruction for this to go through. The bipartisan infrastructure bill is like totally awful. It's like just truly awful. I mean, the fact that 19 Republican senators voted for it just tells you all you need to know, that this thing is like just a heinous bill. But the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill would be maybe the best piece of legislation to pass in Washington in 50 years. Like it's like literally that. It's that there is no comparable piece of legislation since probably the Great Society from Lyndon B. Johnson, or maybe some policies that Nixon passed, like the EPA or whatever. But like nothing like that has been passed since the early 1970s, and would be pretty transformational, and would probably save Joe Biden's presidency, which is already kind of on shaky ground. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the political fight of the last several decades, at least. Like Obamacare looks like a joke compared to this, and think about like how transformational that seemed at the time. In retrospect, not so much, but like, yeah. And this is like this dwarfs that by orders of magnitude in terms of the expansion of social welfare for regular people. The reduction of the Medicare age from 65 to 62, the child tax credit, all these things like would genuinely improve the lives of millions of people in a way that legislation just doesn't do in Washington, or hasn't done in decades.
Not to mention it's the most consequential climate bill in U.S. history. Like, hello, we need to. I'm all for the progressives pulling this move and trying to really pressure to push these two bills through together and not split it up, because that just seems like a game that they are not going to win.
Yeah. Well, and no, of course they won't win it, right? And the fact that Nancy Pelosi is on board is like, that gives you a sense of that she understands it'll get filibustered if they don't do this in that sequence and in that order. They don't withhold their vote until the Senate fucking comes correct. And this is totally like if progressives cave on this, then I'll become one of it's a fraud squad. Like I'll be like the fraud squad people if they like just vote for some bullshit, because they have the upper hand, I think, or at least a ton of leverage. But yeah, man, of course, Mansion and Cinema. Like, what do you guys want? Do you want a statue? Do you want like a Scrooge McDuck, a swimming pool full of all the money that fossil fuel companies and others like gave you? We'll give you that. You could swim around in it, but just vote for this. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.